It's the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Queen City Music Podcast. I wanted to take a moment and thank everyone for all the positive feedback I have been receiving regarding the podcast. Each month, more and more people are reaching our Facebook page and downloads have increased with every episode. If you enjoy listening to the Queen City Music Podcast, please share it with a friend or a musician who may enjoy listening to it as well. The podcast is in its second year, and I'd like your help in getting the word out about the talent here in the Charlotte music community. Speaking of talented musicians, this month I am speaking with DZ Mauldin, who is the guitarist for the local hard rock tribute band Shotgun Saints. If that wasn't enough, DZ gives back to the music community each week by publishing DZ's Weekly Carolinas live music listing. This is a fairly extensive listing of where to find live music in the Charlotte and surrounding areas. Hey, DZ, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Welcome. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, you might just start listening, but me and DZ have been talking for a little while already. So DZ, tell our listeners, are you originally from the Charlotte area?
Yes, I am. I was born here. Kind of moved away for a few years to Charleston, Atlanta. Came back in the late 60s, and I've been here in the Charlotte area ever since.
All right, so what's your musical background?
Well, I started out playing violin, and that progressed over as I got into my teens into playing guitar. And, of course, I had some instruction, classical guitar lessons, and I did that for a while. And now it's just I've taught a lot of guitar myself, but I play in the band, and I love guitar's my passion. And
what attracted you to the instrument? Because if you started on another one, I mean, when I was a kid, I started on trombone, and I think as soon as the needle dropped on some Black Sabbath, I was done. I was done.
That was very, very much along the same lines. I had some really cool aunt and uncles at the time that turned me on to the Rolling Stones. And, then it progressed from there to some Grand Funk. And then Black Sabbath, of course, and Led Zeppelin, and, of course, Jimi Hendrix. And, the influences go like far and wide reaching at that point. But it was aunts and uncles that kind of influenced me in a, I think, positive way, and I thank them very much. In fact, I've told them a number of times that I appreciate all the encouragement, because they have over the years encouraged me as a musician. So
it's always good when you get encouragement. It's particularly when you're younger to play, as opposed to stop making all that racket, or this is not going to go anywhere.
Oh yeah, and I've dealt with that too. I can't say it's kind of unusual, because I had. My father was a trumpet player, and he played in the North Carolina Symphony at the time, and so he was very good at what he did. And he kind of messed around a bit with some local bands, and this would probably be in the late 50s, early 60s. And my mother was a professional dancer. She taught dance, and she taught in a dance studio in Greenville, South Carolina, and then she and during the summer, she spent her time in New York City, and she danced professionally on Broadway, and she got to do some dance routines and things with Mary Tyler Moore was one of the people that she actually did some things, and I'm trying to think of who else. But anyhow, that's what she did, and so she spent a lot of her early years doing that, and of course, when they got married, they didn't do that anymore. And I think my mother was encouraging to a degree, but I think that they were also kind of leery of that rock and roll music would probably sway me to be the wild child that I ultimately ended up beginning to come at one time. So it was kind of crazy. They didn't like it, and then they kind of did, and then they didn't. And I've even heard, why are you doing this? And it's all about the passion for it.
It is.
Music to me is life, and I love playing music. I can't imagine having music in my life in some form or fashion. And so it's always been a very integral part of my life. And in fact, I've probably watched way less TV than most people do because I would rather sit down and pick a guitar up. And
right.
I play every day. I mean, it's not a day goes by that I don't pick a guitar up. Sometimes it may only be for a half an hour, and then sometimes that turns into 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
Right.
But it's a passion, and I think if you want to be good at your craft, if you will, you have to be willing to just not put a time limit on things like that, and you just go into it. When I taught guitar, one of the things that I tried to tell parents is don't push the child. Allow them to love it, and if they love it, they'll continue it, and they'll do it without, being browbeat into doing it. And that's the thing. If a child or anyone loathes doing something, they won't put their heart into it.
Yeah.
So
funny enough, I actually tell the same exact thing to parents that the students I teach for guitar lessons now.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a story of when I was younger. My aunt and my cousins, they were taking piano lessons, my little cousins, and they had a timer on the piano. And that's, no, you need to put in your 30 minutes or your hour. And I was like, I was playing guitar at the same time they were playing piano. And that was so foreign to me that somebody would tell you, here's the clock, put in this time before, it's just, if you want to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And I've had, when I taught, most of the students that I taught playing guitar were beginner, intermediate, and they were all in the, I had a few older students, but most of them were, from the age of like 8 up to, 12, 13 years old. And some of them were very good, and some of them you could tell that it just wasn't what they wanted to do.
Right.
And I've had conversations with parents before, and I've tried to encourage them, don't force the child to do this if they're not going to put the time in to actually love it, the instrument. If they don't want to do it, then don't force them to do it. Let them do something else. Let them find their own passion, but don't. Music is something you either love it and you want to be enveloped by it in every way possible, or you don't, and you just want it to be part of your life in a way that's not as intrinsic to it. But I think that it's so crucial to never push anyone into doing something. My dad's a pilot or was, and from the time I was about 8 years old up until just about 10 or 15 years ago, I flew, and I had a pilot's license, and I flew for a long time, and he always kind of wanted me to follow in his footsteps, and I was flying at about 30,000 feet with him on a corporate plane one day, and he looked at me and he said, I don't understand why you don't want to do this. And I told him, I said, I love to fly. I don't want to have to do it because it's a living. And I feel a lot the same way about music. I love music, and so it's never been a money thing for me. And believe it or not, it wasn't about getting girls, although that was something that kind of happened.
It is for a lot of us young boys when we start
but,
playing.
I really, 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 really dug the music. I mean, to me, just being able to dig into an artist and go peel back the layers of things to see what maybe they were thinking at that time frame when they wrote something, or that, you try to get to that level of feel that you're looking at, that was 30 years or 40 years or even more. To me, that's just so, it's like history. And I've always been a big history lover. And so it interests me so much. And even my wife says this day that I probably know more useless knowledge of things, music, than I probably should. But it's because I genuinely loved it.
Yeah.
And playing guitar is something that I just adore it. And I can't get enough of it. And I'm 57 years old, so it's not going to get any better. So
once you find your passion, though, you just can't stop.
Exactly.
I don't care if it's guitar. I don't care if it's sports. People, you find something you really love to do, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to. You don't need a paycheck for it.
Yeah, and my guitar teacher used to get really frustrated with me because I would go and learn the piece of music that he was wanting me to do in classical, and then I was the kind of guy that I would come in and I would do it, and he would look at me and he could tell I wasn't sight reading. And I was like, well, I already learned how to do that. And he says, yeah, and I can tell you're not sight reading because you're putting too many of your own inflections into the notes. And so I told him, I said, yeah, but that's what you're supposed to do,
that's
man.
what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put yourself in the music.
And so then I'd change the subject on him. I'd say, hey, but check out this neat little riff right here that Kansas did or something, you know?
That's hysterical. Well, speaking of Kansas, you've been around the Charlotte scene for some time, playing music, playing in various different bands, but currently you're with Shotgun Saints.
Yeah,
that's the main group you play with. You also are with Union Jacks.
Yes.
So for some of the folks listening who haven't come out and seen you with Shotgun Saints or its offshoot Acoustic Saints, fill us in about Shotgun Saints. What do you guys do?
Shotgun Saints is it's a cover band, and we've had some ideas about possibly doing some original music, and it hasn't come to fruition yet, but it may over time. And I've got a lot of material that I write and a lot of legacy material that I've had that would probably fit into that format really well. We have male and female lead singers, and that's kind of, I don't want to say that it's unusual in this area, but there are very few bands that have dedicated lead male and female singers.
Okay.
And I did that, and it was kind of a calculated thing because I had remembered a very, very, very good and very popular local band. They were from North Carolina, called Sidewinder.
Okay.
And these guys were absolutely amazing. They could pull off literally anything from Yes to, Boston to you name it at the time. And they had some incredible talent in that band. One of the notable guitar players that came out of that band was a guy named Audley Freed. And this guy's, I love his playing. He played in Cry of Love, and then since then he's played with the Dixie Chicks. He's done a lot of studio work. He's played with the Black Crowes. He actually was a member of the band for a while. But he's played with Warren Haynes and all kinds of people. This dude is just like a monster guitar player and got such incredible feel. So, I mean, I kind of really fell in love with that male and female lead singer type thing. So when I put this band together back in 2011, it was originally to kind of take what I was already doing in another band and take it to another level with the production and all that. I wanted it to really be a big show, top-notch lighting, top-notch PA and production, and also the look. Go on stage. I wanted people to have the feeling that they were at a concert and not going to see a bunch of guys standing on stage with cargo shorts and flip-flops and T-shirts on.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything against that, and I see that.
Well,
and
it's not my thing.
I like to feel like that the fan, especially if you're doing these very classic, well-known songs.
Yeah.
I want to give them a 3-hour excursion from everyday life. You're trying to transform them into the fan that they need to be to really enjoy the music. I've seen too many photographs and videos from the 80s through the 90s of bands being set up in these bars and venues around the area, and I've played in a number of them as well, where a lot of the people in the photographs are looking at television screens. And if there's one thing that drives me crazy about a lot of venues is the overabundance of that. And it is what it is. We affectionately have gone and called it the chicken wing circuit, if you will, with the sports bars and things. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for everybody to play, and literally that's the case. But I think when you're in a music venue and a dedicated music venue, you must entertain the people. And I think sometimes that maybe the music didn't suffer by these venues bringing entertainment in so much as that the bands and entertainers don't entertain like they used to. The music's actually as good as any other thing, but it's like the show just went and the production went.
Right.
And I'm so used to, I remember putting the headphones on when I was a teenager and putting the album and flipping the black light on and sitting in a room with it blaring and dreaming of being on a stage and being able to put this type of show on. And that's kind of where it all led to. And I have been fortunate enough to do a number of shows and tour with some bands, well-known bands, and won't get into that, but there's been a lot. And I've gotten some very good professional relationships with well-known musicians, and even today, these guys don't phone it in.
They just giving 100% the whole time.
They go out there. Yeah, it's all about you have to entertain, and you got to give it, and it's the love. It is. Yeah. If you don't love it, then don't do it.
Well, I think to your point, if you're out there playing and you're playing a certain style or you're trying to put a certain vibe out there or an experience, you've kind of got to dress that part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I say the shorts and flip-flops, not my thing, and it's not to demean anybody else, but
no.
I'll tell you what, when I started and I was playing and I look back at some pictures of myself playing with shorts and flip-flops, I just looked and I was just like, it's so unprofessional looking for me to go out because I look like everybody else in the bar. And if I'm at the bar and I'm playing, I don't want to look like everybody else if I can help it, or dress the part that I'm on stage and you're there to look at me.
I say I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do watch a show pretty regularly when it's on because it's Dan Rather's show that
The Big Interview.
Yeah, the Big Interview,
I love that show.
And he had Jack White on there.
Yeah,
and I after watching that show, I became a huge fan of Jack White, not necessarily because of the type of music, but his philosophy about all things music. This guy lives it, he breathes it, and the one thing that he made a comment about was Dan Rather said to him, you're a real snappy dresser. And he is, And he replied back, he said, when I lived in Detroit, he said I was doing some side work with a blues musician and an older gentleman that had been around for a long time. And he said the one tip that he gave me was you never play a show in the clothes that you load in. And so he said, this guy never... he always wore a suit when he went on stage. He always looked great, but he never walked in with the same clothes that he was going to play the show with.
Interesting.
And so that's a very interesting thing, and I think that, I don't say that everybody needs to do that or prescribe by that, but I think that it's like a lot of things. I think that, if you really want to, you have to get up on stage and be... I don't want to say bigger than life, but I guess that's probably the best thing to say.
Right.
You're there to give and create the illusion of a star, so to speak, and that's and maybe that's not the correct thing to do. I don't know. For me, I like to make sure that I am giving that fan that's out there that hears me playing, even if it's a cover song, give them that illusion that they're seeing that star or that person or that moment in time is the more important thing, I think it could say, because we all have that moment in time. I mean, songs with me, I can literally hear a song and it'll bring back so many senses.
Oh, yeah.
that I felt at the moment I first heard this song, or a moment in time where I had a problem or an issue or something that happened in my life. And I mean, it can be as strong as bringing you to tears, or it can be as strong as bringing a smile to your face and laughing about something.
And people can knock playing covers, but the interesting about playing covers is it's the new kind of classical music in that sense. Because I said it to somebody the other day and they laughed, but it in my mind it's kind of true. You go see a symphony orchestra play, they're not playing original music, they're playing covers. They're playing something Beethoven or Mozart wrote. A lot of jazz musicians, they're playing jazz standards.
Putting their own spin on it.
And rock and country and quote unquote pop music today. That's what everybody's doing. But you hit the nail on the head. You're putting your own spin on it because you're not going to sound exactly like AC/DC. You're not going to sound like Motley Crue or Grand Funk. You're going to sound like you doing it.
That's right. And I think that's what's important to realize as far as whatever instrument you play. I have a lot of influences, and I mean, I've told people before I couldn't just. There's no way I could put my finger on just any one guitar player that I felt like was so influential that made me want to pick a guitar up. There's 100 of them, if you will. For me, I think what I take away from any of the influences is that I don't try to necessarily emulate, let's say, Billy Gibbons or Joe Walsh or Page or Hendrix or, whoever it is. I think what I've tried to do is it's good to learn that style or that technique and be able to take that technique and use it to create your own voice with it. And even if you tried to play it identically to the record, you won't, because even the artists don't do it. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to concerts when I was a lot younger in my teens, and at times it was almost a disappointment because you would go see this band that you had sat there with the earphones on and dreamed about seeing and everything, and you go in and they play a song and it's like they went out into the left field with solo or something, So it was kind of like not necessarily what I wanted to hear. Sure. But at the same time, as I got used to going to more and more concerts, the older I got, it was like, these guys, if they had to play this for 200 nights a year, what would you do? Right. Obviously, you're not going to play it the same every night. You're going to try to maybe do something a little different. Right. And I do that often, in especially in Union Jacks and in some of the songs that we do in Shotgun Saints, because I'll play a song and I'll learn it, and the chord progression and the arrangement might lead me into one inversion of a chord here, and then I may turn around and play it in a totally different inversion just to see what it'll do. And I've sat there and played a different chord, inversion of the same chord, and my guy and my other guitar player in the band look over at me like, I heard that. So it's fun to kind of do that, to kind of make it interesting. Let me ask you a question. You've got Shotgun Saints and Union Jacks. Is it a similar kind of show? What's different between the two groups? The difference, Shotgun Saints is strictly a classic rock with male and female fronted type songs in there. And we do, obviously Hart, Pat Benatar, and those types of things. And then we do a lot of the other stuff that the male lead singers would do. That band crosses a lot of, or covers a lot of ground. Union Jacks was an idea that I kind of put together, and the drummer and I, Freddie Trumbauer, when we first started putting the idea of the band together, he had been in a very successful touring production that covered like music from, I want to say it was from the 50s through the 60s and into the 70s, and I think even the 80s. And they did costume changes and a lot of that kind of thing. Oh, neat. And it was very successful. And so when I had this idea, part of what we wanted to do was I wanted to take and do a British rock themed tribute act or show. And originally we had a list of songs that would probably take 4, 5, 6 hours easily to play, and we had to cull that down. And we also looked at the fact that, with the type of audiences that like the classic rock, we wanted to kind of maybe keep it from getting too pop sounding. So we excuse me. So Union Jacks is really a British hard rock / early, metal type of situation. And it's all British. We do play some Foreigner songs, but Foreigner does have British influence in it, with Mick Jones and a couple of the other original members that were in the band. So we try to, that's a big production show. It's probably as big or more big in the production area of it than what Shotgun Saints. We can take Shotgun Saints from a small venue to a large venue, but this Union Jack show is something that has to be in a bigger place. It's a tribute. We're trying to do a tribute to that era of music, or that genre of music. And, so it's interesting, and it's very fun, and we've had some good success with it as of late, and hoping to get it out in front of a lot more people, over the region. We've got some people that are booking agents that are looking at wanting to take us on and put us on some festival type stuff that's going up and down the eastern seaboard, and I'd like to do that. And I think that would be really cool. So
neat. What's the your primary vehicle though is Shotgun Saints?
Yes.
Right?
Oh yes.
Okay, and you guys have won some local awards. You won the Queen City Music Awards, Queen City Awards.
Yeah, the Queen City Awards. In 2016, somebody nominated me for Best Rock Artist. I never knew.
Great.
And first year being nominated, I won it, and then.
That's wonderful.
My wife's been nominated for the same award for the female side for 4 years in a row. And she hasn't won yet, but it's going to happen, I think, sooner or later. And then, we've been nominated as a band for a few years. And then last year in 2017, we won it. And I kind of figured that, someone else would win it this year. And then got the news the next day. We couldn't make it to the show because we had played the night before, and my lower back was giving me a lot of trouble. So I even had tickets to go to the award ceremony, and we didn't make it. We ended up winning it. And so that's 2 times in a row. So I told the guys in the band, I said, that they're going to expect us to go 3 times now. And I said, hey, we've got our work cut out for us.
so the awards, it's not really just a paper thing. They actually have an award ceremony and everything?
Yeah, they do.
And
it's broadcast on WCCB, I believe. I think they broadcasted it last night, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Which would, December 29th or whatever. But yeah, it's a big production, and it started out pretty small, and this is I think this is the 11th year, I believe, of it, the 11th annual one. And so, Kevin has done one hell of a job, getting it, and he supports.
Who is it, Kevin?
Kevin Glover.
Okay.
And he's with the Connected Foundation. That's the people that actually are over the Queen City music, or I say music awards. It's the Queen City Awards, because they do other categories as well. There's country and rhythm and blues and rap and all that. And so he's a big supporter of that. But and he's very active in the community with education things for children, and so he's like the big wheel with that, and he does a fantastic job, and so we try to help out the community as much as we can. That's one of the prerequisites when you are nominated is that you have to do community service.
Oh.
And so over the year, we do a lot of shows, for whatever. We've done stuff for autism.
That's wonderful, man.
We've done a lot of other shows. We do each year. We didn't do it this year. They didn't hold it this year, but for the last few years, we've done the Rockin' Kids First concert. That's with Kids First of the Carolinas.
Okay.
And Karen and Kevin Corzine have a lot to do with that concert and that organization doing that. And so we've been real proactive in wanting to. We were going to be on it again this year. And for some unfortunate circumstances that were going on, they couldn't do it. But it's going to return, I believe, next year. And I intend on being a part of that. But we also are a part of doing Moochie Palooza, which is a real big show for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital kickoff for the home that they build every year.
Okay.
And that's a really, really cool thing. We like doing a lot of shows especially when it involves children.
Right.
And we like doing things that are going to be very helpful to our own community around here as well. So
I think it's wonderful that you give back to the community so much. One of the reasons I actually came to know you was through Facebook, because you're not only giving back to the community at large, you're giving back to the music community, and you started running DZ's weekly Carolinas live music listing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words to put out, excuse me. So how did that come about? Because if you don't know, DZ runs this listing every week. He takes time out of his day, out of the week, to put together this listing, not just to the Charlotte area, but all the way up into like Asheville and all the live music that's happening. So how did this come about?
I guess it would be about 2014 or so. I was just, I would see people making comments not only on Craigslist, but on Facebook and other social media about the music scene in Charlotte being so wretched and so horrible, and it, the people there didn't know anything about what a real music scene was,
right?
And it was a little disheartening, and I would see people really slagging the community, the music community as a whole. And one guy that had been to transplant that came from another large city was talking about how much it might have been Nashville, if I'm correct, or something like that. But he made a comment about the scene there and how much more productive it was, and this and that, and there were a lot more places to play, and it just became this long tirade of sorts. And I thought, well, you know what? If you want to play in this town, in Charlotte, and I just took it on Charlotte alone at that time, I went and did about 2 hours of research, and within 2 hours I came up with probably 100 and plus venues in about a 25-mile radius of Charlotte.
Right.
And all those venues had music, artists or solo artists, duos, trios, bands, you name it, they were doing it. Some of them were even karaoke, and some people will give me hell for that because I do list some of that. But, you have to bring people in, and if you have to expose them even to karaoke to get them to go out and see live music, then I'm all for it.
There you go.
So my initial thought was to post this in rebuttal to what this fella had said. And when I did it, I was amazed. Within hours, there were several hundred people that had responded, and some people responded most favorably were a lot of the venues that I had listed and a lot of the artists that I had tagged.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took it upon myself at that point, well, I'll just do this and see how it flies and see how it goes, and see if it gets legs.
Sure.
Well, it did. And it became very, very labor intensive, and has been a labor of love, because I don't make a dime off of it, and I don't care to make one. I'm totally wanting to just support and promote local music. And I'd like to see that become, I'd like to see people in other bands and other artists and venues and everybody support, each other. I've seen enough of the putting each other down,
right,
and talking badly about one another. I'd rather see all of it be a helpful partnership, if you will, to try to get the music out there,
sure,
and give the artists in this area a place to play.
Yep. Well, speaking of which, if somebody's listening, they're a musician and they want to get on DZ's listing, how do they go about that?
Well, what they should do is, first off, they can contact me right off the page.
Okay.
The DZ's.
On Facebook.
Yes. And
what's the page again? DZ's Weekly Carolina's Live Music Listing?
That's it.
That's a lot. It's a lot. Write it down.
You know, so it's on there and it's posted. It's updated daily. I try to put a cutoff on it. And I'm not too stringent with that at times, because I go in there and add a lot of things sometimes at the spur of the moment when someone asks me to, if they're nice. I've had some people go, "You didn't put me on there, so why?" And I was like, "Well, you don't have an event page, you don't have a page on social media, and I've tried to tell a lot of people." Create a Facebook presence for your band, not your own personal page, a band page or an entertainment page, and drive people to that. So if people can do that and they want to send me the link, I'm good with that.
Well, speaking of which, for the music page, you can contact you on Facebook. Once again, ZZ's Weekly Carolina's Live Music Listing. How about Shotgun Saints? How do they get in touch with you at Shotgun Saints?
Shotgun Saints, they can get to off of, Facebook.com/Shotgun Saints Rock.
Okay.
And
how about Union Jacks?
Union Jacks, they can get to it like that as well. Right off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I even put the site together. I don't even know. But I want to say it's Union Jacks tribute band or British tribute or something like that. It's what the
I'll put all this in the show notes just so folks can contact you.
I do have a standalone website for Shotgun Saints, and it's shotgunsaintsrocks.com.
Hey, listen, we're going to wrap things up. DZ, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and hanging out for a bit. I'm sure we'll even talk even more after the podcast is done. If you want to get in touch with DZ, you can check out the local music listing he's got. Look him up on Facebook. And I'll leave all links to the show notes for Shotgun Saints and Union Jacks and Acoustic Saints and all the things that's DZ.
I appreciate that, man.
All right, DZ.
Thank you so much.
Much success in the new year, bro.
You too, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
And that will bring episode 17 of the Queen City Music Podcast to a close. If you are a musician or otherwise involved in the music scene here in our fair city and would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play, among other places. So keep a lookout. Until next month, get out there and support your local music scene. Bye.